Welcome back. We're glad all of you are here. Cecil Hurt is too, and someone who has certainly seen the beginning of the Saban era, a couple of others as well. And he joins us now. Cecil, good afternoon. Always great to catch up with you.
Hi, Paul. Sorry I didn't have the opportunity to watch the SEC network last night, but I've heard a lot of positive comments about how insightful and entertaining your show was. So,
well, thank you. Yeah, I fully expected you just to quit watching the game and put us on, Cecil. I mean, I don't know why you in the press box you would do such a thing. Now, I was trying to think. I think I was in
New Orleans. People who did watch it that way.
Well, yeah. I mean, it dawned on me when we were talking about you earlier that I went 5 days in Atlanta without ever seeing you. So, but anyway, I'm glad we caught up here.
It's a hectic time, as you know, with the championship games, and I'm glad to have a chance to talk to you. I think this is the sixth time that we've had this conversation.
Yep, we have talked to Cecil every single day after the national championships of Saban, and Cecil, I want you to, because of your unique position and your ability to reflect on previous regimes as well, to put this into perspective.
Well, I thought that Nick Saban did something that I would have thought was impossible, which was, he did something that pleased Alabama fans, not just winning, but you get accustomed to winning, and a lot of this season has been people who are accustomed to winning, and yet at halftime of that game, they didn't think that they were going to win. And he found a way to win, and that's a rare feeling in Tuscaloosa. It's probably been since 1992 that they've had that feeling, and so made it that much sweeter. I think that's why you've seen the reaction from Alabama fans that you've seen. Even an absolutely thrilling game like their win over Clemson 2 years ago didn't generate the kind of reaction in Tuscaloosa that this game had.
Cecil, if you reflect purely on the Saban era, I mean, the first one was pretty incredible in the Rose Bowl, but after that, most of them have just seemed pretty businesslike, have they not?
They really have. There's a certain historic value to winning against Notre Dame, particularly for Alabama fans, and so I think there was some gratification in that. The rematch against LSU was, that was a peculiar kind of situation, gratifying in a way, but certainly wasn't a dramatic game like we had last night. The first time against Clemson, I think Alabama fans expected to win. I think they have more appreciation for Clemson and Deshaun Watson now than they ever did, but this was different. It wasn't quite, the 1992 upset, but given the standards of the Saban era, it was probably the most exciting. It's been amazing how many significant games they've had against Georgia, the 2012 SEC championship game, the blackout game in Athens, and now this one, and what benchmarks those have been.
Yeah, no, and you mentioned the 2012 game, Cecil. That game still is talked about, and much is forgotten. Frankly, nothing is memorable about that Notre Dame game other than maybe A.J. McCarron and Barrett Jones, two teammates, almost getting into a fight.
Yeah, that tradition continued last night.
And I want to ask you about that, because had Alabama lost, that would have been a centerpiece of conversation on all the chat shows today. Instead, it got scant attention. What was all that about?
Well, I think Makai's a young player, Makai Brown, who deservedly got a penalty for his actions on the field, and then responded emotionally on the field, and I wouldn't call it an altercation, but had words with one of the graduate assistants, Kerry Stevenson. I thought that he had just let his emotions get the best of him. I don't know that Nick Saban was really aware of what had happened on the sidelines. That's going on behind him while there's a game going on. So Makai apologized both on social media and in person last night. Just let the emotions get the best of him, and it's a situation that he'll learn from. And as you say, it would be a much different perspective on it had they not won the game. But they'll talk to him, and they'll help him understand to control his emotions a little bit better.
Well, let's talk about the big story of the day. Other than Saban and Bryant, which we will get to, but that's a decision to go to Tua. What went into that? We know there was a lot of conversation last week. Kind of maybe we can go back to New Orleans and take us through the process that you're aware of, or at least believe was going on.
Yeah, if you noticed in New Orleans, even in his pregame, and you can always tell when Coach Saban has something on his mind, it finds a way out. You know, he's extremely thoughtful in his answers, and they really do reflect his mental state. And on 3 different times in the media day and in the lead up to the Clemson game, he was talking about Jimmy Garoppolo, which to me was saying, well, he's looking at how a quarterback can change a team, how a dynamic quarterback turned around the 49ers. Obviously, Alabama didn't need to be turned around, but I think that had the circumstances against Clemson been similar to the circumstances against Georgia, he would have probably done the same thing against Clemson. As it turned out, using Jalen was the right game plan against Clemson. They were able to run the ball. He certainly is a big part of their running game. And so there was no need to make a change at that point. You're just trying. You're in the playoffs, win in advance, and Jalen, other than a fumble, but he didn't throw any interceptions. He protects the ball, and Nick's not worried about the style points. If you can get a 24-6 win against Clemson, you go with the guy who can do that. But when you're down 13-0 at the half against a very good Georgia team, that's a different situation. So they certainly, nobody didn't recognize Tua's ability. But there's more to it than just saying, well, this guy's better than this guy, when the first guy has been your starter for 2 years, has been a team leader, has done what you've asked him, has executed the game plans the way that has helped Alabama to win as many games as they have. But there's no question when Nick needed a spark, when they needed to find something, that Tua had that dynamic ability. Now, he threw an interception. He had a 3-and-out his first possession. And I think the real credit to Coach Saban, obviously the decision, but also to stick with the decision, not to say, oh, well, he threw that pick, we better get him out of there, and this is what's going to happen. He knew what he had to have. He knew he had to have probably 20 points in that half to win, or as it turned out, to get into overtime. They had a chance to win at the end of regulation, obviously, with Tua. But then the play in overtime, there's no other way than the schmaltzy way to say it. That's the stuff of legend.
Talking to Cecil Hurt, Cecil, I want to come down to the final play of regulation, the field goal, and we've seen this movie before.
It has, and Andy's a walk-on who loves Alabama. People know his story. He's from Montgomery and transferred from Ole Miss so he could kick for Alabama, but clearly his nerves had gotten the better of him, and he normally makes those kicks at that range. He's not Rodrigo Blankenship, Georgia's kicker. He's not going to bang through that 51-yarder every time. But he can make that kick and has made it. But that's a huge stage, and I think the best thing, certainly for Andy, is that it didn't cost him a game, and people will be more understanding. He did have a big field goal in the second half. He did have one important one. Missed another one after a penalty in the first half. But I think what you take from it then is to understand the kind of nerves and the veteran players face in that situation on that stage, and then look at the way that the freshmen, Tua certainly, but also Devontae Smith, Alex Leatherwood, Najee Harris, performed on that stage, and for Nick Saban to have the confidence to put freshmen in that position.
A lot of things played into the call that won the game and won the championship. Missed field goal, nobody wanted another field goal, the sack. Kind of take us through that, because it is, I'll let you answer the question, but certainly in serious contention for one of the greatest plays in Alabama football history. Well,
the sack, there's two schools of thought. Nick Saban was in the first school of thought if you saw him on the sidelines. He was not happy with Tua taking that sack, knocking him out of field goal range, whatever you perceive their field goal range to be. They were out of it at that point, facing a 2nd and 26. The Georgia rush got on Tua very quickly, and I will say you'd rather see the quarterback throw the ball away. But once he's contacted and once he's going down and been hit, the last thing you want him to do is to try and throw it away and not get it out of bounds and have it intercepted, because then you lose. So wasn't the best play, but wasn't the worst play. And I think it's just to his personality that by the time he took the next snap, he'd forgotten that. It wasn't something that he dwelled on. It wasn't something that made him nervous. It was just, how can I make this next play work? And they saw something in Georgia's coverage. Tua did a great job, an NFL-level job of looking the safety off, stepping up in the pocket, making a perfect throw to Devontae Smith, another freshman. And so, just the confidence level that goes into all that and being able to do that in those circumstances is what's remarkable. It's not just, this guy has a great arm, or he showed greatest capability on that 9-yard run for a first down earlier in the game. It's the mental makeup and the composure and the ability to shake that sack off and not worry about it 5 seconds later when you've got another play to play.
Cecil, finally, the exit conversation since last night. This has been going on 3 or 4 years, probably ever since the 2012 season, and then the near dynasty enriching three-peat, which didn't happen. The Bryant-Saban connection, and how motivated do you think Saban has been to either reach that number, which he has, or eclipse it, which he has not yet?
Well, I think we've talked about that topic since they won the national championship against Notre Dame in Miami, that he would pursue that was something that meant something to him, to have the 6 national titles and certainly the 7th, which would put him beyond Bryant, beyond all coaches in college football. I think that probably is meaningful to him as well. As far as the comparison, and that's such a deep question, and to compare Bryant to Saban, in some ways you have to compare the world, and certainly the Deep South, whether Memphis, where you grow up, or Alabama, where I grew up, in 1961 or 1964 to Alabama in 2018. Things were different. Times were different. Bryant faced different challenges. I don't know how Saban would have handled integration. I don't know how Bryant would have handled the unbelievably constant media demands that Saban seems to take in stride. So that's what makes it difficult to compare. But I will say, when you're talking about winning 5 in 9 years, that's unparalleled. And that accomplishment, not Bryant, not Rockme, not anybody has ever achieved anything like that.
Good answer to the question, and I totally agree. Cecil, we will talk to you very soon. Always a pleasure. Get a little rest, and we will catch up with you soon.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it as always.
You got it. Cecil Hurd, one of the truly great writers in Alabama, and just an invaluable historian of that program. As a young reporter, he covered the end of Paul Bryant, and now covering Nick Saban. Don't ask me why that sounds familiar. We'll take a short break. More of your phone calls at 855-242-7285. More guests to come, including the National College Football editor of the Associated Press. He was in Atlanta last week. The college football season has ended. We are trying to stay away from the way too early who's going to win next year, because Alabama's already number 1. So I figured you knew that. We'll do that tomorrow. We'll be right back.
We the one they talking about. We the one. We the one. We the one they talking about. We the one they talking about.